For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome to Let's Get To, the baseball podcast from the fans' perspective. Now here's your host, James Christopher.
And welcome to Let's Get To. We are back, and I have survived a tumultuous sports weekend. First, University of Texas laid waste to the UTEP Miners. And yeah, it's UTEP. They were picked to win by 44. I think they ended up winning by like 55 or something. And on the surface, that's not important, I guess, but long-time Longhorn fans have known that it's been a few years since they actually kicked around an opponent that they truly should have kicked around. So it was nice to see that. Astros-Dodgers on Saturday was awesome. Astros go into the ninth. They face old friend Kenley Jansen and come away with the win. They were down 3 going into the ninth and scored 5. So that was a lot of fun to see the offense come back. Sunday's Astros game against the Dodgers didn't go great. They lost the game, but I went in with it being such a bad road trip, really just hoping for a split. I felt like if they could just get a split, get to the day off, and now they have 13 games left, they should be able to hold on to their playoff position. JV might be back. We'll talk a lot more about that with Andy this week, but it felt not great. Dusty used his give up lineup when he only had really 6 batters in the 9 batting order, and he used Cy Snead, which is never great, but didn't matter. I was also excited because I had the Cowboys on. The only person not excited about the Cowboys playing was Mike McCarthy. Hey, Mike. I know you're a big fan. Love, thanks for listening. By the way, listen, man. 8 minutes left in a game, on the road, 4th and 3 from inside the 20. You kick the field goal. You don't even think about it. You always kick the field goal. So then that very frantic, furious drive we had at the end to try to get into field goal range would have been to win the game, not tie the game, meaning there would have been overtime. Okay? We're good? More clear? Good. I did want to talk real quick, and I really, really try to keep this show as my Astros fandom free as possible. One, I have a lot of loyal listeners. They're tired of hearing it. And I automatically know that there's going to be some degree of automatic tune out by people. And that's fine. Look, it's fine. I think fans have the right to react the way they want to react. It's what's beautiful. And in 2020, with COVID and all this stuff, I'm not going to be the one to tell anybody any different. I do think, and I had a funny story. So, after Joe Kelly does his little pouty lip thing, most, I think, adults in the room thought that it was a ridiculous gesture, that it was very childlike. And my wife actually thought that the mural that they painted for this dude was a troll job. And I think she might have lost a little faith in humanity when I said, no, people are celebrating that. They are celebrating that action. When to me, the biggest badass action is to strike Correa out and just stare at him as you walk back to the dugout. What? So yeah, my wife didn't realize that people were celebrating that. And this is what the connection I made to that. I try to keep politics out of this because, again, I want you to feel safe, that you can come listen to this and get a break. But look, here's the thing. I'm not a Trump fan. To my fellow not Trump fans, if you think it's ridiculous when he mocked the handicapped person with those childlike actions. We're not that far from sticking your tongue out at somebody when you're an adult. It's childish. It's you're such a baby. And the fact that ESPN just kept eating it up just really shows you how far the worldwide network has fallen with its already like horrendous baseball coverage of just grasping for the low-hanging fruit. And, it's this thing where I've never gotten into petty things like that. Like, again, I know that there's some opinions about me. Believe me, you tell me in my DMs. I try not to get petty, and I never do. I really do my best to try to stay like above the fray. Like I don't have the hate us t-shirts, and I don't have the sort of negative expressions of fandom stuff. I did have the Hugs for Homers t-shirt, right? Like that Breaking Tees did that. So I'm pretty consistent on how I think fandom should go. And I think that if you are on the one hand, diss Donald Trump for being a child, and then you celebrate Joe Kelly sticking his tongue out, you might need to check your own kind of hypocrisy at the door. But we do have a great show for you today. I am wearing and I'm not really big with the whole camouflage look when it comes to sports paraphernalia, but I am wearing my Minor League Baseball camo logo. And again, like I said last week, with the sadness that this logo might not have any meaning in 2 weeks. So one of the things Jessica and I are going to do on the show today is I have created a fake team, the Padres Island Pirates, and we're going to go through what that impact is going to be like from both economics and morale if that team was contracted tomorrow. So we got that coming up for you. We got the St. Cloud Rocks on the show. We're going to be talking to a really cool guy we met at the winter meetings about his podcasting empire, I guess you would call it. So stay with us.
Show me the merch. The best from the pro shop.
And welcome to Show Me the Merch. I have got a great brand for you today. And look, I'll admit that I am guilty of oftentimes judging a book by its cover. As the show is still relatively young in its life, this is only our second year, I oftentimes will decide on a brand based on the look. And the Norfolk Tides is a look that I have coveted since before we started this. And they've been on my hope to get out there list. They were supposed to be visited this year, but due to the pandemic, they had a Labor Day sale. So I pulled the trigger and bought some stuff, even though I was hoping to get it on site. But I want to start with the ball cap. And look, I love the logo. It is so minor league baseball in the best way possible. It ties into the naval connection, which we have in Norfolk. Such a great look. And then I also got a t-shirt again with Norfolk Tides on it, with the logo on it. I do have to laugh because Jessica and I noticed the color scheme of the Norfolk Tides when we were visiting the normal Corn Belters way back in July, and they had the pod going and one of the teams with the Wildcats. Jessica and I talked about how much we loved the orange and green color combination, and you don't see that in baseball very much. Well, since then, we have the Joliet Slammers, which is very much has that combination going, and now the Norfolk Tides. Now, one of the things that people talk about with minor league baseball, oftentimes changing brands, changing looks, is that it means that there's a piece of the past gone. And the best teams, even when they change cities or change branding or change logos, will do their best to go back. And with Norfolk, when I bought the stuff, I got a bobblehead for the Tidewater Tides. And it's a great flashback look. First of all, I love the fact that it's porcelain, so it's glass. So it's a little bit more delicate. Probably need to keep that out of Braxton's hands when he comes to visit. But I love the fact that it's got their championship banners on there, 72, 75, 82, 83, 85. And then it says on the back, the Tidewater Tides were the top affiliate of the New York Mets from 1969 to 1992. Tidewater was a dominant team in the 1970s and 80s and captured 5 Governor's Cup championships, taking home the International League crown in 72, 75, 82, 83, and 85. When the New York Mets won the World Series in 86, 14 different players on the squad were Tidewater Tides alums. The Tidewater played games at Met Park from 1970 to 92, with the team rebranding as the Norfolk Tides in 1993, the years the Tides moved into Harbor Park. And again, I love keeping that connection with its past. That's baseball at its best. Baseball is a game that's always going to move forward, and it's always going to change itself and adapt. Like the country, like the speech from James Earl Jones, it redraws itself. But the connection to the past should always stay there. And I love the fact that one of my favorite ball players of all time was Roberto Clemente, even though I was not even born before he died. That's what baseball does. It carries its past into its future. Norfolk did that with this bobblehead, and some of the very best teams are the ones who managed to accomplish that.
Who's on first? The Let's Get To Local 9, brought to you by Zoomer Sport.
All right, we are excited to welcome to the Who's on First segment, David Hoeschen, who is the life of this season for the St. Cloud Rocks. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. We are, I don't know if I should say great. I mean, COVID's still around, but we're doing our best to get through. I want to tell a little story, though, about how I met you. And I think it goes to how cool that organization is. So fans of the show know that I was visiting Bismarck, North Dakota. Then we went to the Fargo, North Dakota Redhawks. And then I'm driving home. Or actually driving to the airport. Driving home would have been insane to Austin, Texas. And then pulled into y'all's ballpark, and you guys opened up the concessions or the pro shop a little early for me to get a ball cap, and I thought that was really, really cool, man. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We always love, selling merch is one of the coolest things because people get a piece of your team. So, might as well.
That's a great way to look at it. So tell me a little bit about you. Like, how did you end up working for the St. Cloud Rocks? And I know that there was some other stuff thrown in there. So tell me a little bit about that and how you ended up there for 2020.
Yeah, well, I'm from St. Cloud originally. I grew up in Sauk Rapids. Was a massive River Bats fan growing up. And then in 2012, they rebranded to the St. Cloud Rocks, taking on an old brand that Hall of Famers like Lou Brock played for. So it was kind of a cool homage to the community and the granite. So that was awesome. But I grew up going to those games. Bought my very first paycheck with babysitting money, not even gonna lie, was a St. Cloud Rocks t-shirt. And I kept that. In 2015, I worked doing video because I went to St. Cloud State for Be the Broadcaster Day, and they're like, "Hey, you're wearing a Blue Jays hat and shirt. You must like baseball." I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'll get paid to go watch baseball and eat free food and film it. Heck yeah, let's do it." So I did that. In 2018. I worked for the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks and did promotions and merchandising. Oh yeah, that's actually, I saw your colleague at the game wearing a cool Honkers jersey. They were a rival that night, and then wearing the Redhawks mask. And I'm like, yes, I need to talk to this guy.
Yeah, that's Andrew Nelson for everybody listening out there. He does our Raiders of the Lost Diamond segment. Yeah, good guy.
Oh yeah, great guy. We talked basically the whole game. So did that, and then in 19 worked for the Eau Claire Express in the Northwoods League, and then in 2020 I actually had a position lined up with some connections from Fargo out in Schaumburg, Illinois, but the Frontier League season got canceled. So luckily I just made a phone call and asked if St. Cloud needed some help, and they're like, sure, might as well. So I was able to work for my team, and it was weird because like I mentioned, I grew up going to these games. My first paycheck went to the team and everything, and now I'm performing in front of these fans that I've grown up around and with, and they've seen me working at my retail job when I was in high school. So it was just awesome to get back in the community and do this crazy thing.
Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because one of the things that's cool about you guys, about the Rocks, is y'all put like everybody has in-game entertainment, but you guys, you kind of play the whole game. Like you sort of MC, I guess, or you kind of keep things going. And a lot of the teams don't do that. A lot of other teams, it's just like, hey, everybody look for the outfield. We're going to run into each other in padding. What's it like to kind of perform for an entire ball game and just keep that energy level going?
Oh my gosh, it's an amazing feeling. It's electrifying. I mean, in a word, it's just this awesome emotion of being out there and being able to be that fan that would usually get his beer thrown at them by the fourth inning, and now people are cheering with you. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And so it's awesome. I mean, last year in Eau Claire, we had a 7-8 game homestand. By game 2, I ran around and did the wave about 5 times in the grandstands, and I'm like, all right, let's get 5 more games in this week. Let's go. There's really no way to describe it except it's just amazing, and to see people enjoying what you're doing, one of the greatest feelings in the world.
So as you said, you had a 2020 baseball plan. All of us had a 2020 baseball plan that went away. And what was it like for you to find out that you weren't going to be able to have your Frontier League job, no baseball, to now being able to have some baseball? What was that emotion like for you?
I mean, it was hard because for me, baseball's been what keeps me going. I mean, I would pretend to be sick from things I didn't want to go to just to go watch Twins games at home, or that was my comfort food, for goodness sakes. When I saw a scary movie, I stayed until 1:30 when I was 7 watching reruns of ESPN's opening week broadcast. So, I mean, it was hard because during these weird times, that's what I wanted. Nothing more than just to see baseball, see it played at any level. And at that point, I mean, there was no hope for MLB. Minor league baseball wasn't looking like a go, and they've
Yeah.
got all that weird stuff going on too. Even the Northwoods League wasn't announced yet, so it was hard. Just weird emotions all around, like a roller coaster that just kept on going down and down and down.
What was it like, do you think, for fans then? One of the cool things I liked about the ballpark in St. Cloud was it's very veteran focused. It's got a very you walk up and there's the stuff. What was it like, do you think, for fans who maybe thought they were going to get Rocks baseball to at least, I know that y'all had a small number, like you capped the amount of people that were allowed in, but what do you think it was
Mhm.
like for the fans to finally get to see baseball this year?
I think it was just comfort food. I mean, to get back to something that you're so used to, that you've had your whole life, that you almost take for granted, and now you have this thing again. I think it was just comforting for people. And I had people coming up and who were expressing how happy they were that they finally got baseball, that it felt a little more normal than
Yeah.
what this year has been.
I think that's it. I want to get to what you're doing next, what the Rocks are doing next. But I remember, my wife is usually with me on all these trips. And our first game this year, I think, was my third game. And I think we made it halfway through. And she looked at me and she's like, I never realized how much I missed it until I didn't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely an emotion. Even when I was like out performing or being my character, or whatever you like to call it, you don't realize how much you miss it. Cause I'm like, I can kind of get by, but it's there, and it's even better when it's right in front of you. And it's like, yep, totally missed it in hindsight.
Well, I know that I'm coming up to the Rocks next year. Y'all's hospitality was enough to say that's a trip I'm making for sure. And again, the tie-in with the ballpark and on my veteran status. What can I look forward to as a fan, just hanging out at a ballpark? What kind of experience can I look forward to?
Well, if my math is correct, they're celebrating their 10th season next year. Founded in 2012, so 21 should be 10 seasons. So they're looking to do some fun promotions and bringing that energy to the ballpark. We have wonderful staff at all levels, whether it's ownership, the GM, and our PA guy. I mean, he's awesome. That's definitely something to look forward to. He's fun to play around with, and we toss banter back and forth. So those are some things to look forward to, as well as the typical promotions, and hopefully some new exciting ones this year.
Okay, so you mentioned, before we get to your future, you mentioned that you play a character.
Yeah.
How much of it's you, or how much of are you, like, I got to imagine, like, I'm a filmmaker by profession. Every day I roll on set, I'm not super excited to be making a movie right there. So how much
Mhm.
of it is just your natural enthusiasm versus like a character you've created?
Um, I don't know. They kind of really blended. I started
Yeah.
doing this in 2016 with my college, and it was more so just finding that balance of what I could do in my spare time, like when I'm being a person around my family and friends and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the enthusiasm of being at baseball, that's all me. That's 100%. And then making fun of people, usually I'm pretty reserved when it comes
Okay.
to that. Be a little sarcastic, but like I'll yell at fans like, "Come on, you can do better," or make fun of like, "My grandma can cheer louder than you. Come on." And I usually don't do that. So those are some of the things. It's probably 80% a character
Okay.
at that point, because it just kind of, it's so much. But
Yeah.
then a lot of me still pipes in, and especially with fan interactions and kids, like that's 100% me, just enjoying kids enjoying baseball.
Well, I will tell you that Andrew, I think, texted me from the game and was like, "You got to get this dude on the show." So I'm glad he did. Now, you mentioned, going to school for broadcasting and all that stuff. Like, is that what your ultimate goal is, or what's your next step?
That's a wonderful question. So yeah, I started out doing broadcast journalism, and got thrown into this awesome opportunity at Minnesota State University Moorhead, the college I went to, called the Go Team. And by my third day, I was in it for a class, producing sports audio and video. And then by my third day of working there, they're like, "Hey, we need someone to go help with the merch stand or the marketing table. Go do that." And then finally, a few weeks later, the MC was gone, and they're like, "Hey, we need some help." I'm like, "I'll do it. Sure, give me a microphone. I've never done it before." And I did that, and that's kind of how it started. And then it shifted from being broadcast to being more fan-centered. Then I went for advertising and public relations, but now I'm kind of looking more at the broadcast radio side again. So we'll see what road I take. But right now I'm currently working for a hockey team in Wilmer, Minnesota. So not baseball, but I feel more Minnesotan than I have in the past. So, it's good. It's good.
Ballpark and Chill, the best in binge-worthy baseball podcasts. So we are excited to welcome back to our brand new Ballpark and Chill segment, where you can find other great podcasts, other great baseball content, because, Chris, whether we want to admit it or not, the off season is fast approaching.
It's way closer than I would have wanted it. But you know what? The way things are going, I almost don't mind.
So actually, let's go back to when you and I – so we met at the winter meetings. And, this was your idea that wasn't a thing yet, but now it's a big thing. So tell me a little bit about how it came down.
That's really kind of interesting. When we met, I had a name and I had an idea that I wanted to do.
And you had business cards on the way that hadn't made it yet.
They showed up the next day. So you took a picture of the business card on my phone, and it was like, yeah, this is really professional. This is really going to end well. Hi, But you know what? We got, as I got home and as it kind of came together after we went to a dinner, my buddy Rocco and I, who is kind of, my partner in the site, we went to an ABPPA dinner, which is an organization that was founded by Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth about 94 years ago. It was at the Angels Diamond Club. So we're sitting down, we're with all these ball players hearing these crazy stories. I'm sitting back to back with Rod Carew, some other guys, coaches all around us. Tommy Davis is sitting there, great stories, but they're all hysterical. All these stories, and they're not the ones you hear in normal interviews. So that was the light bulb over the head idea. And I was like, man, somehow we have to get these stories from the players to the people. And, as it just kind of snowballed. I mean, next thing you know, I had David Wells as our first interview. Then I got Louis Tiant. Then I got Dave Parker. I got Bobby Valentine. I just did one with Jim the Rookie Morris. That'll be out next week. So it's just kind of snowballed, and I'm just trying to keep up, man.
So how fast has it grown? Because, it's just like I said, it really has exploded.
I think we're 5 months old now.
Wow.
Yeah. This week will be 5 months. And, the first couple months, we were just trying to figure out what the hell we were doing. And it just kind of took on a life of its own, which was great. We got a guy named Kevin Kernan writing for us now. He spent the last 22 years at the New York Post. So, we're getting a lot of baseball people involved, which is great. And that's really what I wanted. And, honestly, we're at the point where I figured we'd be, I don't know, maybe a year from now. So I'm just like, we hit the ground running, man. So I'm just, like I said, trying to keep up.
No, it's so badass. How has 2020 impacted you at all, like positively or negatively? Because obviously, like, look, dude, 2020 for me has been awful, starting in January, but whatever.
Oh yeah.
Go. Yeah.
I know, I know, I know. It's what, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Um, I mean, regular work really kind of slowed down and almost stopped. So at the same time, it gave me the time to do this. I was like, I just didn't want to sit on, my tail and just gain 15 pounds and not do anything during, the lockdown, especially in California. So I'm like, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, now I can really hammer out what we're going to try and do with ball 9. So instead of, sitting around gaining 15 pounds and doing nothing, I sat around, gained about 20 and just started a baseball set. So, here we are. Somewhere in the middle of the Mojave Desert. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Hey, I haven't been to the Mojave Desert since 1995 as part of National Training Center, but that's a whole other.
Oh yeah,
that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, no, I gained 20 and turned my podcast into a web show, so that's what I did. So
see, I mean, it's good for something.
Good for
so I mean, now I'm out here trying to hike through these mountains and try and lose a few.
Yeah,
eventually we're gonna have to go back out, and I'm gonna have to look normal again.
Yeah. Well, speaking of living normal again, as we kind of wrap up, then, like, where do you see the site going next? Like, will you be at the winter meetings again if they happen in person? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if they happen again, absolutely. And I hope to see you there again. Now I actually have a good reason to go, and that's what I was actually saying. Saying to a couple of my friends, I was like, I went to the last 2 winter meetings, not exactly sure what we're doing. One time I just wandered onto the set of MLB Tonight somehow. I just wandered on. I'm standing there looking around, suit and tie. I don't know what. And then last year I met you, and I kind of had an idea. So at least this time around, that would be the perfect end of 2020, or just that I finally have a reason to go, and they don't have the meetings. But after this, we're gonna start in doing some more audio podcasts with a couple guys. Trying to bring a couple other writers on board and just really just keep expanding. Like I said, my plan ended where we were about a month ago. So right now I'm just kind of scrambling and seeing where it goes.
All right, Chris. So where can everybody find you? I don't mean now in the Mojave Desert, but I mean find your show, find your site.
I don't even know where I am. We're at ball9.com. That's NINE, not the number 9. Because if you hit the number 9, it takes you to some weird Chinese site. We're at Ball9 Tweet, and I'm serious. And Ball9 IG is the Instagram, and we're on Facebook. We're all over the place. I haven't done a TikTok yet because I don't know what the hell am I going to do on TikTok? Let's be honest here.
I think
I don't dance.
I think I'm too old for it, brother. All right, we'll get you hot link. Thanks so much for jumping on Let's Get To and enjoy the desert.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I'll see you soon.
The Minor League Mind with Jess Canaster.
All right, so we are back here on the Minor League Mind with Jess Canaster, and we're doing something to kind of illustrate what minor league baseball is going through. And so I've created a team name that I haven't told Jess yet. Jess, we are going to talk about the Padres Island Pirates. A little bit about Padres Island. Padres Island is a you've probably heard of South Padre for spring break. It is the spring break headquarters, at least down here in Texas. And I wanted to paint this picture of a very popular tourist destination. They just put a bunch of new money into their stadium for the Houston Astros. They are an affiliate of the Astros. And Jess, they are being contracted. They didn't know. They just found out. So part of this exercise I wanted to go through was to talk with you about this week, the economic impact of that contraction, and then next week, the human morale impact of that contraction. So first, how are you? That was a long introduction to say, how's it going?
Things are okay. I mean, where we are in the desert of California, about an hour northeast of LA, we are getting a lot of the bobcat fire smoke. So things are smoky here, but compared to pretty much everywhere north of us in the Pacific time zone, going all the way up to and even beyond the Canadian border, our air is clear compared to everybody else. So,
wow,
it's on top of everything else. it's smoky. So
did you have fire on your 2020 bingo card? Because I had Kraken, so I definitely lose.
Well, I mean, at least in this area, there is a specific fire season, like hurricanes or tornadoes in other parts of the country. So where it has been the worst, though, Northern California and into Oregon, that's been more the unexpected stuff. So for Southern California, two separate bingo cards. Southern California, it's basically, I mean, I hate to make light of it, but it's like the free space. It's going to happen every year. It's unfortunate. That's its own thing. But North, that's where it's really been just added to the pile of stuff.
And like you said, it is spreading up there. I know that there's talk of the Seahawks might not play their game. My daughter is dealing with it as well. So, yeah, we definitely want to keep them in our thoughts. I do want to go to our thought experiment, though. So we did talk about, I wanted you to start top down. Let's talk about what the economic impact is going to be for our fake baseball team, the Padres Island Pirates, which should happen, baseball. But I want to talk about like the execs. I think a lot of people think executives of minor league teams are these loaded, rich dudes with all the money in the world. What's the economic impact going to be like when these teams start getting shut down?
Well, from like an ownership standpoint, vast majority of minor league teams are owned independently. They're owned by maybe somebody. I think a wealthy minor league owner is a owner or ownership group that has multiple teams. But even that is somewhat few and far between. I think the ownership groups that have the most teams maybe top out at 3 or 4. But for the most part, these organizations are really they're like those forgetting the name, but like those pendulum things you see on executive desks with the balls that go back and forth and back and forth. And if you stop them, it takes a ball to get it going again. But it's self-perpetuating. It will not ever stop because of physics, and I'm a film major, so I don't know. But something like that. Basically, once it gets going, it keeps itself going. But once it's stopped, it's in trouble. And so, by and large, the Pirates, they're an independently owned team. There's just one owner. And he's the only, or his group is that's the only team that they own. It's often pretty hard to get a minor league team going again. And all the money that they make is the money that they keep. So then that's the money that they spend. So, and a lot of these minor league owners, this is a business venture of theirs, but it's a business venture because they want it. So, I think it really comes into play that these are people spending their own money. They're not going to be making a lot of money because the money that they make is going to keep their team alive. And so they'll leave this without that hobby is not the right word, but without that, sort of side project of theirs. And, it might not affect them too much financially, other than whatever they sunk into the team, they're not going to get back. They won't have the ability to, at any point in the future, sell their team to recoup any money that they spent on it, or to make any money off of the sale because they have improved the value of their team. So, the owners of the Padres Island Pirates, they've lost whatever money they've put into the team. And at the end of the day, they might end up fine, but whatever they put into the team is now gone.
Is now gone. All right, so let's talk about management then, and I think this kind of touches on. Let's take where you are in your career. You personally, someone who has worked, basically paid your dues, and you're working your way up. Eventually, you would want to become some kind of general manager, some sort of management position. Talk about those people and what that does to their career progression if their first year as an assistant GM, now all of a sudden that team is gone. What will it do to them and all the hard work they put in years past?
Well, minor league baseball, at least as it stands right now, and I don't know how the landscape changes based on the negotiations and all that stuff, but minor league baseball is really a fraternity. It's a very tight-knit community, and so people who have worked for minor league teams, or do work for minor league teams and want to move on, whether it be because they want to or because in this case they will have to. There's really a good bond there that will help out some people, anywhere possible in terms of being able to find a landing spot. Depending on the level of baseball, you really find more front office members who move to a place, and then either if they didn't have a family, they start a family, and that's just where they'll be.
Yeah.
Where I worked last year in Midland, Texas, Midland Rockhounds, all of their upper management staff have been there for at least 20 years. And
wow.
for a minor league team to go away after 20 plus years of living in a place and working for that team, and certainly the Rockhounds are not alone. There's a gentleman who works for the Lancaster Jethawks, where I am now, who's been with the team since they became the Jethawks, since they moved here from Riverside in 1996. And he has been the stadium operations manager for the team since then. And, he saw him a couple of weeks ago, and he's having to look for work, or, starting to build up the resume just in case there's no Jethawks baseball next year. And so I think it really, it won't be the end of working in sports for everybody. And I don't think it will have to be, but I think it is quite possible that some of these individuals who have really built lives in places end up continuing to work wherever they are, but not in sports, because I think it's a lot easier, and it's not easy in either case, but I think it's a lot easier to probably change your career field and your industry than it is to move your family, having built some severe roots, to somewhere else in the country.
Yeah, that's actually something I didn't even think about from this perspective of, you're right. Like, if you've got a kid going to be a senior in high school, do you move for another minor league job, or do you find some non-sports equivalent to what you're already doing? One of the things I was thinking about with this was, I'm a big, as you know, an Astros fan, and our play-by-play guy, Robert Ford, worked his way up through the Eastern League and got the crack at the majors. And I thought, can you imagine if you thought you were 1 gig away from the majors and that team goes away? There's that angle to it. But I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about your perspective of a guy who paid his dues to that level, but also how many first jobs come from some of these minor league teams that might be lost out from an economic perspective?
Oh, the fallout, the future fallout, as it pertains to people wanting to and being able to and then getting to work in sports, I think is going to be felt for a really long time. Because I think, there are certainly the individuals like myself and all the people I mentioned with the last question of who have wanted to and desired to and have worked in minor league baseball as their, as their goal, as their target. And have been there for decades, and that's where they want to be. But, there are lots of people who look at the minor leagues as the same thing that players do. It's a great first step, and it's cool to get paid to work in sports, but I want to move up.
Yeah.
And, for all those people who want to get their start in sports, or they want to do sales or something like that, there's 160 minor league teams, and even more beyond that if you include short season and rookie level stuff, that need ticket sellers, that need group salespeople, that need season tickets, that need whatever other packages sold, and then sponsorships as well. And I think if you dive through, certainly if you dive through the Major League Baseball roster of front office personnel, I think you'd find that a decent percentage of them sold tickets or something like that for at least one minor league team. And so it's really a developmental league or developmental level, so to speak, for front office personnel, just as it is for players. So you take that out, and it's almost like if you restricted down by 25% colleges that could be that could have players drafted into the NFL.
Right.
Eventually, things will normalize, but for the time being, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt, and it's going to be, I think, felt for quite a while because people get out of working in sports all the time, and even at the top level, people get out of working in sports all the time. That's something that's felt at the minor league baseball winter meetings. That there's those shifts. Somebody leaves, and then somebody else moves up. Somebody else moves up into that spot, and so on and so forth. And it's a little ladder, or I guess it's a giant ladder. But you change the game by taking out a couple of those rungs. When somebody at the top level leaves, there's more people to challenge for that position potentially, depending on how volatile Major League Baseball is moving forward. But there's more people to challenge for that position, but also there's the chance that people coming into baseball will be coming from other developmental, so to speak, other minor league levels, from the 3 or 4 different levels of U.S. soccer to developmental basketball to college sports, like mid-major college sports. And so I think there's a decent chance that major league front offices could be forced into hiring people without as much baseball experience in the future. Yeah. And, that's kind of going to be, that's a lack of sympathy. There's no sympathy on behalf of major league teams having to hire people who haven't been working in minor league baseball, because there's a 4th fewer minor league baseball in existence. So
right.
It's going to kind of have to go that way.
One of the things one of the groups of people that I'm saddened the most by this perspective, though, you see at every ballpark you go to, the retiree who wants a part-time job. He's maybe always wanted to work in sports, doesn't get a chance to. They get to know the fan. Like, I think that to me is the demographic that breaks my heart the most about this, that and the 16-year-old who maybe discovers, I want to work in sports because they do have a job as an usher for a game. I think, again, that's the one that really kind of punches me in the gut the most.
Minor league baseball really built itself, and in the last couple of weeks we've read a lot, and there's a lot been written about what Pat O'Connor did for minor league baseball, and how much in his nearly 30 years with the organization, he really dove into creating a community connection between minor league teams and where they play. And I think that's felt not just obviously by the players who move on to bigger and better places and wear the names across their chests of maybe cities and towns that nobody's ever heard of in major metropolitan areas, but then also that it takes a community to really push the baseball team and push the organization forward. The retirees, the people who don't want or maybe aren't yet qualified for a full-time job, somebody just looking for something for the summer, a high school kid as his first job as a ticket taker. I think back to somebody in Midland last year who he worked 3 days a week up in the press box with us. He was part of our production crew. And then 2 days a week he was an usher. And then the other 2 days a week he came to the games. So really, really a full week of multiple hats worn figuratively and literally, but just that people in the communities are interested in these teams for more than just one reason. And yeah, it's gonna suck. Everywhere I've worked in production in minor league baseball, we've had at least one person on staff who had a career doing something else, and then they picked up doing production because they were fascinated by it, or they just, they wanted to do something, but they wanted to be sitting the entire time. So put them in the production room, teach them how to direct a baseball game, teach them how a switcher works, teach them how to use a T-bar to fade between camera angles and all of that stuff. And you've taught somebody who has lived a full life a brand new skill. And, then there's the whole sentimental side of that, but just on the surface, it's somebody you wouldn't expect to be working is working because it really does take that community to move the team forward. And so, I know next week and beyond, we're going to talk more about the community, but I think even just from that aspect of everybody feels like they have a hand in what's going on.
Yeah.
have a real local feel to it because, I'm not from Lancaster, but I work for the Jethawks. But yet all the people who were on my production crew, because I did get to hire a production crew for this year, and all the ushers and ticket takers and people who work in the store, they live in Lancaster. They live in Palmdale. They live in the Antelope Valley. This is their team. Most of these people grew up going to these games. And so it really is sort of a rite of passage sort of thing to be able to give back and chip in to be a part of that organization. So yeah, that is I think the biggest human interest side of the employee side of minor league baseball, and what will be lost is those people who didn't have anything else to do or actively sought out this to do on the side won't have the ability to do it anymore.
I guess last thing I want to touch on then is, so we've got our Padres Island Pirates, and a bunch of people have spent high dollar for real estate right outside the park to build their bars and their hotels. Talk a little bit about, I mean, you've been to a bunch of parks. Like, the park really is the center for a small little business district, isn't it?
Well, a lot of these minor league parks are, I mean, not specifically the ones on the list, but a lot of minor league parks in general are owned by a municipality of some kind, the city, the county. And so it is part of a larger design of theirs to make it an entertainment district. And so, absolutely right that there are developmental areas created around these stadiums. And it's, obviously it's seen at the major league level too, and across all major pro sports, but even at the minor league level, if you're drawing 3,000 people a night, they're going to want to eat something potentially beforehand. Might want to drink something potentially beforehand. They might want something to do afterwards. If it's a day game on a Saturday, they might want to go hang out and watch college football afterwards or something along those lines. And so, and then, moving back to the city planning side, the city is actively trying to make sure this happens, especially more so if they have a skin in the game, if they own the parks. But
right.
The independent business owners, the restaurants and the bars and the souvenir shops or whatever else that's right nearby, those are not owned by the city. Those are owned by individuals who thought that it would be a good opportunity to capitalize on 70 days a year plus having an influx of people right there who would see their business and maybe attend their business during the summer. And then in the places where it's not inhabitable or uninhabitable in the wintertime, maybe, there's this really good deli right across the street from the ballpark. Yeah, I know it's January and there's snow outside, but I still want a sandwich.
And now, on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
And that does wrap up today's episode of Let's Get To. But as we close, I'm actually going to have a conversation or share some thoughts that I would have recorded for, the third or fourth time. And each time I did, it didn't sit well, either the way the recording ended up or where it placed in the episode. But it's really the reason why I have unsubscribed from The Athletic. And I don't say this to start a movement to bring down The Athletic. First of all, I represented 4 or 5 annual subscriptions, if you factor in some of our team, and only about, I think, 23,000 Twitter followers. I'm not enough to bring down The Athletic, and I know that. And I wouldn't want to. I just thought I would share a little bit about why I chose to unsubscribe, to save that amount of money to put in other places. So I'm a Cowboys fan, an Astros fan, and a Longhorns fan. And I subscribe to The Athletic. Clearly, those are my 3 team preferences. But I also subscribe to The Statesman, the Houston Chronicle, and the Dallas Morning News to get that content. And I, generally speaking, like most of the national writers for The Athletic. Ken Rosenthal does a great job. Where my issue became, or at least where my issue became a little too hard to ignore, was the role of other teams' writers when it came to my Athletic experience. So as a film guy and as a graduate at University of Texas at Austin, one of the most important figures to come out of that department or out of that school was Walter Cronkite, who was all about like journalistic integrity. And I just don't think that most of the writers on the individual team beats, as opposed to Teen Beat, where people learned about Ralph Macchio. How good is Cobra Kai, by the way? But most of the individual team writers, at least the ones I've come across, and look, honestly, it's about 25 of the baseball ones and a bunch of the college football ones, I don't think meet the basic definition of journalism. If you're going to call yourself a journalist, you've got to write like a journalist. You have to write with some degree of objectivity. You have to write with some degree of trying to just find information, maybe contextualize it and get it out. What I have found is that most of the writers I came across that cover individual teams write more like they're writing for a fan-sided account or a Rivals account and not for the LA Times or the Dallas Morning News or the Washington Post or wherever. It felt more Homer, more fan-driven, and the fact is it's not journalism, and I didn't want to pay for it anymore. In my opinion, and maybe this makes me old, and one of the things about this show that I've learned as we've been doing this is that I'm old. I'm getting old. I've got certain intractable ways of seeing the world. But I believe that I should not be able to detect if I'm reading the Oakland Athletics, if I'm reading their page, I'm using a team that I actually don't have a problem with. If I'm reading their content, or the Seattle Mariners, if I'm reading their content, I shouldn't be able to know by reading it whether the writer likes the Mariners or hates the Mariners. I shouldn't be able to tell. It should just be have some degree of neutrality. I liken it to going to the Statesman and reading Kirk Bohls versus going to Orange Bloods and reading Jeff Ketchum. And Andy Tom Chesson just did a little when I mentioned Jeff Ketchum. I'm right there with you. Him and Billy Lucci are peas in a pod. But that's my point, though. The Athletic purports itself to be journalists. It shouldn't be fan rallying, we're big homers, isn't it cool that we get to cover a baseball team? And so I just felt like it wasn't worth my $7 or $8. And I think the best way to really formulate that into an example to understand what I'm talking about. Again, I'm a film guy. Independent film is my profession. I have made 15 feature films. I run one of the highest reviewed film festivals in the country. I teach film. I understand what film is better than most. Michael Moore is not a documentary filmmaker. Michael Moore might call him that, and people might call him that because it's hard to formulate what the other definition is. But Michael Moore makes video essays. The difference is a true documentarian goes into a story looking for answers. Michael Moore goes into a story with the answers already written, and he is looking for supporting evidence to back up that answer. And there's plenty of evidence where he has done some manipulation with presentation of facts to back up what his thesis is. He's not interested in having his ideas challenged. A lot of the writers on The Athletic fall into that same thing. They're not journalists. They don't carry themselves that way. They just carry the title. And then they use it to build a cult of people who already agree with them. And that's why they are listening and reading and all of that stuff. One of the things I learned in this Astros scandal was it was going to challenge that side of me. And I'll be honest, I've both blocked and unblocked Jeff Passan a bunch of times. And I've blocked and unblocked Ken Rosenthal a bunch of times. And Buster's ridiculous. He's a joke. But I've done that with national writers because anytime there would always be this insular, I'm mad that you're talking mad about my team. And then I realized that they're just bringing me data, and I will do my best to contextualize and compartmentalize that data, but not having the data is bad. And I think that was my big issue with The Athletic was I just needed to get better data, and the data I was getting wasn't worth the amount of money that I was spending for my team and I. And my dad was like I should probably tell him that I've cut his subscription, but nah, he's fine. So, but that's why. And so I know that they're not going to care. But it was at least my thought process as to why I decided that they didn't need my business anymore. I wish them the best. I wish them well. I really loved the initial mission of The Athletic of bringing the sports page back. And I wish them nothing but success. But that is our show. We will be back this week. Till next time, everybody stay safe, stay sane. I will be back in the classroom with students. So wish me well. I made a joke about being in the military and going into harm's way without great plans. So I'm hoping that the plans we do have now work out for the best. But anyway, I hope everybody is great. Again, stay safe, stay sane. And until next time, let's get to.